It's Force with Friends podcast, episode 6, and we're talking Ahsoka, episode 6. So welcome to the Force with Friends podcast. My name is Will with the Padawan Pops YouTube channel, and this is my friend Kevin, and today we are going to be talking about Ahsoka, episode 6. So per the usual, before we get into our episode review, Kevin, what score would you give Ahsoka, episode 6 out of 10?
I'm gonna say like a solid 8, maybe 8.5.
Okay.
It was still a lot to like it. We talked about it a little bit. It was a little choppy in terms of pacing, but I mean, it was still a lot of fun stuff. There was a lot that went down in this episode, so
yeah,
it was pretty packed full.
It was. I'm in the same boat as you. I would say 8.5 at the highest. I'm leaning towards an 8. Pacing was choppy, and we'll get to it, but there's a few character decisions that I'm just kind of tired of at this point, but we'll get to it. But quick episode review. This episode, to me, even though it was choppy, seemed like it went pretty fast. So we start in the belly of the Purrgil going through hyperspace with Ahsoka and Huyang, and that's really all we see of them, like 2 minutes. We get a little Easter egg with the old stories that Huyang used to tell, and he goes about telling one starting off a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
That was a nice touch as we go into a new galaxy. So.
Yeah, such a nice touch. I loved it. They're geniuses for writing that. But then that's all we see of Ahsoka. From there, we hop over to the Eye of Sion with Morgan Elsbeth, Shin, Baylan, and Sabine. And they come to this new galaxy. We get to the new planet. It sounded like they said Druidia at first. I'm not 100% sure what it's called, but I went straight to Spaceballs when they said that. I was like, no way are they making Druidia canon. So I need to look up what it's actually called, but I laughed.
I think they were saying Peridia, like the
Peridia
thing. I think they were just saying it differently now.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that's how they said it previously.
Yeah, because I was like, Druidia, I've heard that before. And then I was like, that's Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
So they get there, and as we've kind of speculated, as many have, this is the natural hyperspace lane for Purrgil. This is where they go to die, similar to how eels will do. Like they'll go upriver to where they were born to go back to where they die. So very interesting that they use some biology from Earth throwing in here with Star Wars. So that's kind of the situation there. They get there, they come across these Nightsisters or the Great Mothers, and immediately they take Sabine into captivity because they can smell the stench of Jedi on her. And shortly thereafter, we get the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn. The Chimera comes in. That is a large ship. They show up. We see his battalion of night troopers. Eventually, Sabine gets let go out into the wild to go find Ezra Bridger, only for us to learn that Thrawn is double-crossing his old friend Sabine Wren, and he's sending Baylan and Shin out to kill both of them. Big shocker there that Thrawn would be evil, but that's the story, and so that's the case. But Sabine does find Ezra. She comes across a little trouble, finds some turtle Jawas, and then they go and find Ezra Bridger. Ezra Bridger, straight out of Jerusalem, 1st century Jerusalem. Ezra Bridger looks like he could be in The Chosen.
I mean, yeah, he probably hasn't had too many opportunities to shave or cut his hair there. So yeah,
he looks pretty good though, considering he's been stranded for like 15 years or 14 years or something like that. Yeah, so the episode's there, and then it closes with the grandmothers. I keep calling them Nightsisters. They technically are, but they're the grandmothers. And they sense something coming, and it's Ahsoka Tano. They know it. So Thrawn is like, we need to know everything, and we need to prepare for it. And then that's the credits. Explaining it, that's a lot in one episode, and I think that's why we said that it was choppy. But, it was a good episode. Like we said, it added a lot to the story. So I think what we want to do is break down a few topics. So we're going to run through, we have 5 different topics and then predictions. So we're going to start with the Nightsisters - Great Mothers. We'll move into Grand Admiral Thrawn, Sabine and Ezra, Baylan and Shin, and then our episode 7 predictions. So let's start with the Nightsisters - Great Mothers. Kevin, you're the Star Wars lore expert, so what do you think about these witches?
I don't know that it's what I was expecting. I mean, we knew that was like their ancestors, right? That had come from this galaxy. I don't think I was expecting it to just be straight more Nightsisters, right? I kind of thought that maybe they had like broken off from this group and become the Nightsisters once they were in this other galaxy. But no, it's just apparently where the Nightsisters came from. So I'm not mad about it. I was kind of hoping we'd see a different group that was maybe more ancient or a little bit different. But at the same time, we haven't gotten to really dive in a whole lot. And as much as they've shown up within the media, we don't get a whole lot of background with the Nightsisters. So I'm hoping we get a little bit more about them, especially with the grandmothers on the scene, because I'm assuming, based on their name, that they're at the top of the hierarchy.
The matriarchs.
Yeah. Yep. So no, I like it. I like where it's going. I mean, I definitely think some of their magic is aiding Thrawn at the moment.
Right.
I think it's interesting that they're emptying out those catacombs beneath their temple or whatever it is. I mean, they have some plans for the bodies in there, I'm assuming. So
they do. There was so much, like, just watching it. I had to watch it again, and I probably need to watch it again. It's a busy week, but I'm sure, like, by next Tuesday, I'll watch it one more time. But they threw so much at us. Like, Nightsisters on screen, probably 4 minutes of the entire episode. But they've got the catacombs. They're like the origin story of the Nightsisters. They're super creepy. And then there's just so many theories you can go to from what exactly are they doing? What magic is, Thrawn requesting of them? Because they've been helping him. He kind of makes mentions of that I'm going to need your assistance again or something like that. We will save this for the Thrawn conversation, but I think there's some magic going on with Thrawn's battalion.
Yeah, that would seem to be what's going on. But it took me, I just had to process the episode after I watched it, just because there was so much little pieces of things that were thrown in there. In addition to the big story progress. So it was a lot to think through and try to figure out what was going on. But stuff that's really interesting. Like I'm really drawn into it. So
and if anything, like we didn't get much out of the Great Mothers. Like we got a lot, but as far as screen time, we didn't get much. But I think this little story with them and Thrawn, I think is going to be the leaping point into this next story we're getting with the New Republic. And it's not just going to be a military battle with Thrawn and the New Republic. They're going to play a role, I believe, because it's got to be a Force story. Like there's got to be some supernatural aspects to it. And if the bad guys are being powered by witches, that's pretty cool.
That'll make for some fun bad guys for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have anything else on these Great Mothers or Nightsisters?
I was kind of not caught off guard, but we don't really see a lot of their feeling towards the Jedi previously before now, other than that they're just a different group. But they really don't like the Jedi. I mean, it was instant animosity when they got to the Great Mothers. So
they called her it. Like they wouldn't even refer to her as a person. They called her it. That was terrible.
So that's an interesting relationship they have with the Jedi that I'm curious as to how that all started. So I'm excited to see where they go. I don't have too much to report on them other than I love the fact that they're there. And I really think they're going to make this battle a lot more interesting than just stormtroopers versus rebels, or stormtroopers versus the New Republic. It's like Wiccan stormtroopers, which is a little bit cooler. So, Very nice.
But a nice segue into our Wiccan stormtroopers. We will move on into Grand Admiral Thrawn because I think we have a lot to say here. I'll start this one off. First of all, they nailed it. Like getting, is it Lars? Is this the right
Lars
Mikkelsen? Because Mads Mikkelsen is Galen Erso. So Lars Mikkelsen is the voice of Thrawn in Rebels. He comes back and plays Thrawn, and man, he nailed it. Which he knows the character, so. No surprise there. And Dave Filoni really knows the character. So they bring him back. He's menacing. He's evil. He's everything we wanted. But like, man, his ship and the battalion he has, he's not just been sitting around for 14 years.
No, not at all. And it was really cool when you first hear his voice because you've been watching these characters, but hearing different voices throughout the entirety of this show. But then all of a sudden you hear that voice and you're like, oh yeah, that's Thrawn. So it was almost a little weird at first to hear that voice mixed in with all these other characters who are different. But it was really cool. As soon as he speaks, you're like, oh yeah, this is going to be good.
He's back.
He plays the character so well. It's fun to just listen to him talk.
That's going to be my thumbnail for this. I'm going to put he's back because he's back. So, and it's really a big deal because, you know, in the 6 movies, really the 9 movies, we have Palpatine as the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
But now it's Grand Admiral Thrawn, and this little saga, he's going to be the big bad. So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, same.
And so we know he's going back to the galaxy. That's his plan. He refers to it as his exile. He's talking about destroying the galaxy as they know it. Like, it doesn't even sound like he just wants the Empire to come back. It sounds like he wants to, you know, just whitewash it and start over.
Yeah, he's on a bit of a warpath for sure. So it'll be interesting to see. And I think he will make it back. So I think it'll be interesting to see how all that unfolds. But that's going to be a whole nother story for a whole nother time. So
yeah, as far as predictions go, like, we won't get too far into it, but I don't think he's going to lose to start off. I think he's going to come in pretty hot.
I'm pretty excited to see what he's going to do and what they're going to do with his character in the future. So
yeah. So along with Thrawn, like, one thing that has come to mind, and other people have pointed this out too, is like, how did he and Ezra get separated, and then he can't find Ezra? They're on the same planet, I assume.
Yeah.
So,
no, that's why I really wanted like a flashback, just like, bam, they come out of hyperspace and let's see what happens in the afterspace. So,
and it took a while to go through hyperspace. Like, I bet they were not being nice to each other in that jump either. So,
well, and you got him. I mean, at that moment, Ezra's holding back stormtroopers on one side, and so it's not like he necessarily has the upper hand as time goes on. So, I'm curious as to how all that unfolded.
Yeah, hopefully we get an answer to that, but later on down the road. There's not much later down the road to get right now, but I'm hoping we do get an answer there. But there's a ton to cover. Moving to his battalion, Enoch, man, he looks cool. With the gold face, he's so intimidating. He's kind of a wee man, though. He's short. I think he's a cool stormtrooper, and I hope we see him in some action before this is over.
He's clearly different from the rest of them. And I know we're talking about it now, I guess. Like, you know,
we can talk about it now.
They seem like they're definitely some Nightsister magic going on.
They're zombies, right?
They look pretty rough, right? Like,
yeah, let's just go ahead and say it. Like, all the rest of them, when they were moving, like, if you watch when they're bringing Sabine her weapons, like, he's walking around like normal, and they come up going,
yeah.
And they're just walking like this. They are straight up dead stormtrooper bodies that these Nightsisters have resurrected. I believe, like Marak. I'm pretty sure that's a similar situation.
He was definitely a clue as to what's going on here. But Enoch seems different, right? I don't know that he's necessarily the same as the other guys. He seems to be a little more functional. So.
He's a sentient being, I believe. Is that the correct word? He can reason and function because he's alive. So maybe like Thrawn's right hand man makes it, and the rest of them are just zombie troopers or not troopers, I suppose. I love the possibility of an undead army with Nightsisters, because let's say you kill 10,000 stormtroopers, well, you better burn them up, because otherwise the Nightsisters are just going to make them alive again.
Well, and especially because they seem to be loading bodies up onto the
Lots
Chimera.
Of corpses,
So I mean, there's definitely an army being built here, and so it'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, when Thrawn shows back up, it's going to be awesome into the New Republic. Like, we've been wanting the New Republic to take a beating for a while now. So I mean, he's going to deliver it. So.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. I'm looking forward to it.
What else do you think about Thrawn?
I think he brought and I know we'll talk more about them later, but he brings a very interesting dynamic into play between Shin and Baylan too.
Yeah, he does. He doesn't care for him.
No, Baylan's still his reserved, I'm going to keep my cards close to the chest kind of guy, but Shin doesn't like being bossed around, and it seems like it's starting to create some tension between the two of them too.
Yeah, she's eager and he's patient.
Yeah. So I think he brought out an interesting dynamic between them for sure, just in because he knows he's in charge, and he doesn't hesitate to establish the fact that he's in charge of everybody.
Yeah.
I did like that.
Now, one thing I found interesting, we don't have to touch on it too much, but it's crazy how, I don't want to say fearful, but like cautious he is with all these Jedi. I mean, he's very much aware that he's in exile for 14 or 15 years because of the Jedi. It's interesting to see this menacing figure so weary of like two mercenaries that are not Jedi. Sabine Wren, certainly not force sensitive to the extent that he should be worried. And then Ezra's been out by himself for a decade and a half. And then Ahsoka's showing up, one rogue Jedi. And he's like, this is way too much. I mean, he's got a full battalion and a ship and 3 witches. I feel like he can hold his own, but he does not want to take any risk with this group.
Yeah, and I bet there's an interesting history between him and Ezra right now, because it sounds like they've been dealing with Ezra probably pretty regularly,
especially with all those little turtles having the rebellion sticker on them. He's probably been messing with them like the whole time.
Well, and Thrawn plays it cool. He's like, he could be dead. We're not that worried about him. We're leaving. But immediately as Sabine's gone, he's like, we got to try. Like, you
kill
need
him.
To follow her. Like, we gotta make sure this Ezra dude is gone. I mean, because that's all it took, right? All of his plans were bested by one Jedi.
15 or 17-year-old Ezra. He was not 15. He was like 19. But yeah.
So as much as Thrawn is the guy in charge, his ego and his pride, I don't think. But I also think I think he actually is worried about it. And so
that was the thing that struck me the most about him, is he was the same menacing, maniacal figure, but the cautionary steps he took towards all of the Force people there, not just the good guys, but Bayaln and Shin too. He's like, hey, we'll leave them here too. They're not part of this plan.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. I don't think he's too worried about whether they make it back before they take off. So
no,
he's probably hoping they just all die out there, quite honestly.
Yeah. And so one last thing on Thrawn is he makes mention of, we've had a little bit of a hiccup and they are short on, manpower. He mentions something along those lines, which is back to what you've said in previous episodes, and we'll talk more about it with Baylan later. But there's something bigger here than just Thrawn and these great mothers. There's this other force out there, and I think he realizes his best shot is not in exile. It's back where he was from, in that galaxy, the galaxy we know. And I think this other force, whatever it may be, because they're in a hurry to get out of there, I think it is taking a toll on them, and they need to get out of there.
Yeah, and the thing is with 2 episodes left, like I don't even necessarily think this thing is going to become a big focus. I feel like whatever it is down the road. Like I feel like they've got to be building something up to be really, really cool reveal later. Because with all that's going on, there's no way in 2 episodes they're going to introduce
another enemy, right?
Other big thing and resolve all these other things. So I hope not, because what they've brought up is really cool, and so I hope it does get its time and attention later on. But
yeah. Very true. We'll probably get mention of it, maybe like a cliffhanger, but there probably won't be much meat to it right now. Moving from Thrawn to Sabine Wren and Ezra Bridger, we'll start with the positive side of it, that Sabine did find Ezra. It was cool when she found him. I love the idea that Ezra has got this little rebellious group of locals there that are these little aliens. They're super cute, and he's living amongst them. They move their tent all the time to avoid the raiders, or the nomads, I think is what they call them. And then probably Thrawn as well. Like, they're constantly moving. And it's just cool that he's been living this simple life. And then he's just joking about it when she shows up, like, hey, it took you long enough. Like, total Ezra being lighthearted about things.
Yeah. No, I think it was, if you're a Rebels fan, that's just a cool reunion, right? Yeah. It's cool to see that kind of finally come to fruition. And he was very Ezra, right? Like, I feel like they were spot on with the writing and the portrayal of him. He's also very sure that he's getting out of here now.
Oh yeah, that was so sad when he's like, hey, I'm ready to go home.
So I'm curious as to where this next conversation goes when Sabine has to be like, hey, so I actually don't have a way out of here.
And I left the cat at home not being fed all this time. Yeah. So when we get back, it's probably use the bathroom on the ground.
Yeah, right. No, I brought your lightsaber, but I have no way for us to get home. So
brought the lightsaber, left the cat, and didn't bring her ride home.
Yeah. So I'm curious as to how he receives that. For sure. So
yeah, we'll go ahead and shift to Sabine, because she's in the episode a lot more. So she made some sacrifices to get here. none that she's proud of. She says that, like she tells Baylan she's trying not to reflect on it. It was not a time for reflection for her because she's not really happy about the decision she made, but at the same time, she doesn't want to bring that up to Ezra quite yet. I don't know if she has some hope that maybe there is a way out, or she just wants to be happy and she's fine with living with him there as long as it takes. I just feel like it's a super... I'll backtrack. I feel like everything Sabine has done in this series has been short-sighted. And you can say it's the writing, it's not the actress, it's not anything else. It's just the writing that they wrote her into this spot where she's the one who instigates every bad thing that happens because of her relationship with Ezra. And to me, watching Rebels and then watching this Sabine, it's almost as if she lacks all common sense. I know that the Night of a Thousand Tears does happen. Her family, I believe, is lost in that, and Ahsoka protects her from it. Like, she doesn't let her take part in it or whatever. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the story. So she has no one left. She assumes Ahsoka's dead at this point. She's just trying to get to her only family she has left, I guess. And, I mean, there's still Hera and Zeb, but Ezra's her friend, so she makes rash decisions based on her relationships, and as we know in Star Wars, making rash decisions based on attachments typically leads to bad things.
Yeah, I do think a lot of it's just the necessity of the writing, right?
Yeah.
Like the need to have these things that push the plot along. Because I feel like a lot of what she does is understandable, right? Like it's understandable that she mistrusts Ahsoka, right? It's understandable that she has this deep desire to go after Ezra. And even at the beginning of the episode, that short little clip we get with Ahsoka and Hu Yang, Hu Yang makes that comment of, Ahsoka's still complaining about the choices that Sabine makes. And he's, what does he say? Something like, the Force
he says the Force
insight,
can give insight, but it can't make
you
make the right decision. Yeah.
And so, but not all the right answers. So he's obviously not talking about Sabine because Sabine can't connect to the Force. And so I feel like that's directed at Ahsoka in terms of like, hey, maybe this isn't right or wrong, but maybe this is just what was supposed to happen, right? Like, Hu Yang, I feel like, is maybe acknowledging that sometimes the Force just
happens.
Things happen, right? Yeah. And so I feel like there's a great plot line and a great emotional arc there for Sabine, but unfortunately, it has been written in a way where everything she does pushes along the bad part of the plot.
Yeah.
And so I think it does bring it down a little bit just because there's a lot of interesting stuff there, but it's hindered a little bit by the fact that she's the one who, again, by plot necessity, keeps making these decisions that give the upper hand to the bad guys. So it's not, it doesn't take away too much from the show, but I totally get what you're saying.
It's unfortunate for the character.
Like her. Yeah.
And if you're watching this on Friday or over the weekend, I have a video that released on Thursday that it's titled "What's Wrong with Sabine Wren?" Like it's kind of inflammatory at that. But the problem with Sabine Wren isn't Sabine; it's the writing. They just write her to be the one who takes the L every single time.
Yeah.
So, and I do think the goal of this is going to be that Sabine goes from this season having caused all the trouble. And I think we see a lot of growth for her going forward in this story in the next season and on towards this Mandalorian movie and whatever else they do over the next 3 years. I think we see a lot of growth out of her, and we see her go from making these rash decisions based on family or connections or whatever, and we see her actually, being the leader that she needs to be. So I feel like she's a Padawan, she's the apprentice, so she's learning, and then we're going to see her mature and grow as we move through it. It's just frustrating, and you got your blinders on, only seeing what's in front of you, seeing to where she's the one who has to make all the bad decisions to push the story along. That's kind of frustrating to me, especially when she's making them in spite of who her character has been for the last decade.
Yeah, because there's always been a side of her that's, been brash and a bit of a hothead, but not seemingly ignorant of what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And so, I still like her character, and I feel like there's a lot of interest. Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with her, but it's unfortunate plot necessities that have.
Yeah, and Ahsoka manipulated her into this, all the way. Ahsoka manipulated her into this battle over Ezra. So Ahsoka's kind of getting what she asked for with Sabine going to get Ezra. It's just unfortunate how it all played out.
Yeah, she pulls her in with the Ezra thing and then is like, I can't believe she made that decision because of Ezra. Well, maybe you probably should have seen that coming. So.
Yep. Yeah, the two going forward, I'm really excited to see where they go because we don't see much. So I think we get more in 7 and 8, and then obviously moving forward, we're going to see a lot of Sabine development, I believe.
Yeah, she did get a cool fight scene though.
She did, yeah. She's pretty good with that saber.
Really the only fight scene, but it was cool.
So moving to our last topic before predictions, Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati. The most interesting part of Ahsoka as a whole, the most interesting part to me in this series or in this episode is the interactions that he has with Shin, because we get a lot of information in just a few minutes. So what did you think about all that he threw out there?
I mean, it was a lot, right? Like obviously there's a little bit of growing tension between them because I think she's expecting things to resolve. And I feel like she thinks that things can be resolved quickly, but that's not the game that he's pursuing right now. Right. And so it's interesting, she still trusts him. I think she's still going to follow him. But like I said, it's interesting to see that dynamic between them kind of shifting. But man, hearing him talk, I'm not sure what his play is at this point because he talks about this cycle, right, between the Jedi and the Empire and how he wants to end it. Bringing Thrawn back and is not necessarily aligned with that goal of ending the rise of the Empire. So I'm kind of wondering if at this point, if he's here just to end the Jedi and end Thrawn, right? Like if his goal is to do them both in because he feels like that's the solution to this back and forth pattern of chaos. I mean, So I don't know, man. I don't know what his play is, but it's really interesting as he talks about that stuff. So
yeah, and so I was in the same boat. Like, where's he going with this? And he does talk about, I didn't train you as either. And so he's walking that middle line, like he's got this, ascended knowledge. And I think he's probably not too far off on the middle path of just being a common sense Force user. Yeah. But obviously he leans a little bit more to the use it towards my advantage side, to the dark side. So, but I don't think he's far off. He's like, Qui-Gon's a little bit one way and then Baylan's a little bit the other. Kind of Count Dooku-ish, but maybe not full-on Sith.
That makes sense, yeah.
And so I was a little bit confused at what his plans were, too, like when he was explaining stuff, because it almost wasn't getting anywhere. And then he mentions there's something else out there. Can't you feel it? That's just that little hint thrown out at us that he's looking for something a lot bigger than just Thrawn or the Jedi or whatever this whole mission is about. I think he's looking like big picture of the Force, big picture of not just ruling one galaxy or another, but like you said, all things new. And he seems to be very interested in escaping this one galaxy that it's good, it's bad, it's good, it's bad, just the constant cycle, and seeing what this thing that is calling to him is. And I want to know what that thing is as well.
Yes. And feels not benevolent, right? Like just the way it's talked about. I mean, obviously it seems like the Nightsisters, the grandmothers are afraid of it. And so the way he talks about it, it doesn't sound like it sounds like something that itself has bad intentions, right? And so I am really curious as to what this thing is. He says it's stirring, right? And so I am really interested into where that's going to go. So,
and I'm going to throw that into my prediction once we get to that. But it's so intriguing. Like this episode, I've totally got to rewatch it because there are so many little threads to follow. But this one's the most interesting. And this relationship between Baylan and Shin, I'm not sure where it's going to go. I'm hoping both of them make it out of this season because they're very interesting. And he seems to have some answers to things that we want to know. So I'm hoping that continues. Now, obviously, the actor died, unfortunately, but they could recast or something, deep fake if they want to pay his estate or something like that. They can fix it to where he is still going on. Ray Stevenson is. Interested to see where their story goes. I really hope it's not just cut short here, because he has a lot of Force knowledge and mystery that we don't know yet in just a few sentences here.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. There's so much still to his story that I think could be potentially really, really fun TV. So
yeah, there's not too much to say about Shin, I don't think. Like from this episode, she's very eager, and I think she's more in line with the dark side. I feel like she's got those tendencies about her with power and ambition and a little bit of brashness and eagerness towards doing whatever it is that they're wanting to do. So I'll be interested to see if they clash any going forward over the next couple episodes. I think that will be something to watch for.
Yeah, no, it definitely seems like it's brewing. So
yeah.
It will be interesting to see if that comes to a head.
Yeah. So speaking of the next couple episodes, episode 7 predictions, and we could say 7 and 8, but if we throw both of them out there and then we're wrong on one, we'll have to redo it next week. Yeah. So we'll just say 7 for now, and then you can throw in some big picture things too.
Man, there's only 2 episodes left.
And we don't know the run times, I don't think.
Yeah.
Assuming in the 45-minute range.
There's a lot to do. So I do think I'm pretty excited to see this Night. I mean, we're going to see some Nightsister magic in the next episode, right?
I believe we will.
Specifically says, "Hey, I'm going to need your magic again."
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to what the plan's going to be for that. That'll probably maybe kick off the episode. But I think the next episode we'll get a little bit more with Sabine and Ezra. I think he'll probably explain a little bit of what's been going on. I do think there may be some sort of coming to terms with the fact that she's gotten here and has no way out, right? I feel like she realizes that at the end of the episode when he makes that comment and she's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see some of that, maybe a little bit of tension between them. But then I think we might get into some action between Baylan and them. I mean, because they can't be that far away, right? I mean,
they found each other pretty quick.
Sabine got there pretty quickly.
Real fast. That little rat horse was very quick.
I think we're going to see them meet up. I think we're going to see a clash with them. Hopefully get to see Ezra do some cool stuff.
Yep. That's been the rumors.
But in terms of immediate next episode, I think we'll have a confrontation with them. I think Ahsoka does arrive.
Yep.
And she'll have to contend whatever this Nightsister magic's going to be, right?
Yep.
What if they reanimate like a Purgle corpse?
I was just wondering why they didn't do that to leave, just in general. Like, hey, just reanimate one and go home.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of them up there orbiting the planet. So
yeah, it's a whole ring.
Maybe they'll send a fleet of undead Purgle at her. I don't know.
That'd be pretty scary. So I think I've got this episode figured out. Like, as a big picture figured out. Right, so now I was confident that we were going to see Leia in the New Republic in episode 6. I whiffed on that big time. Way big time. So I think this episode, it's going to be threefold. So we're going to have one Shin Baylan, Sabine Ezra. They're going to be fighting. So that's going to be one part of this story. We're going to have Ahsoka showing up and having to deal with the Thrawn Nightsister magic aspect of this story. So Ahsoka, Huyang, and they do have a ship, by the way. They're not going in on their own.
That's true.
So they will come in, and I think the Purrgil are going to hang around too, but that will go into episode 8, I think. Then we have the New Republic scenes that I had mentioned. So we've got Hera having to answer to Mon Mothma and the Senate or whatever on their dealings. Yeah. I don't think that's a huge aspect, but I think it's a little bit bigger maybe than we anticipated, because at some point they're going to have to realize, like, Thrawn's going to show up at the end and they're going to be like, oh crap, Thrawn's here. So I think they're going to play a pretty big role in it, but it's going to be threefold. And I think if you watch The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, which Dave Filoni is very involved in, the next to last episode always sets up all of the heroes together and then going at the battle. So Mando's season 1, season 2, season 3, and Book of Boba Fett all do that.
Yeah,
so this episode, we're going to see Ahsoka showing up, and they will fight through whatever situations, but somehow Ahsoka, Ezra, and Sabine end up together going into this last battle. And then I do think we see a little bit of the rallying of the troops with Hera going on that side of things.
On the other side.
And then as a whole, Thrawn comes back. I don't know which heroes do or don't come back, but Thrawn comes back, and I think we see the New Republic being like, oh, this ain't good. And that's the end of the season.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think you're right. We'll probably see some of the New Republic in the next episode, because I doubt they're going to leave that for the finale. And it's been left off for a little while. So I'll get on board with that. I think that's a pretty good synopsis of what we might see.
80% of the Filoni verse thus far has ended with the hero, or the 7th episode has set up the heroes being together for the last episode. I would be shocked if he veers from that here. I mean you can kind of see where it's
heading that way anyway, too.
It works.
So, yeah, that's fair.
Really, Star Wars as a whole kind of does this, like the originals and the prequels. They kind of do that anyway. So I think that's what we're going to see. And I cannot wait. This is the setup episode, and episode 7s are historically pretty good.
Yeah,
should be good to see.
It's going to be a fun one. Do you have any big picture predictions?
I do, yeah. So I think that this force or whatever that Baylan senses may be the true bad guy. Thrawn is going to be the big bad guy for this, but I think, and Marvel, I'm not too into Marvel, but Thanos was the bad guy. But then even further back, is it Kang? Is that his name or something like that?
The new bad guy.
Like he was even the bigger bad guy behind
always
Thanos.
A bigger bad guy.
There's always a bigger fish, is what Qui-Gon says. So I almost think that if you're talking Star Wars big picture, maybe even after this whole saga, I think there's some room in this galaxy that's out there to explore what the next big threat is. And this can be something that comes out like with the Rey movie. You know, it can be like much later if we want it to. So I'm excited about just that little line that Baylan threw in there. This could be this can be like Star Wars going forward for decades.
It's really interesting. Yeah, no doubt.
What about you?
One of the things that I thought, because it really feels like this malevolent force entity. So Filoni, obviously in the Clone Wars brought in the whole Mortis thing. Mm-hmm. And then this was before Disney bought Star Wars and wiped out all the and turned it into Legends. So there were some books in between that period where he introduced that in the Clone Wars and Disney bought Star Wars that built on Mortis. And so ultimately it was a long time after the Clone Wars, but it was involving Luke and the whole group. Yeah. But there was this entity named Abeloth, I think is how you say it. Uh-huh. And so this character supposedly, before the Mortis gods ended up on Mortis, was like a servant to them, like helped take care of things, kept the daughter and the son kind of in check, helped along with that. Yeah. But the story was she realized she was mortal, so she was going to die. So she went and drank from these 2 well springs of the Force and became this awful, evil Force entity that they had to basically lock up somewhere. And so I don't know, Filoni loves pulling from things that have already been integrated into some of the literature, and it ties in with Mortis, which he obviously brought into things.
He's a fan.
I think it'd be cool if we got this really kind of evil Force character that's tied in with the Mortis gods. But that would definitely be a big picture enemy way down the line. So, but that was immediately what my mind went to, was that character. So.
No, that's so cool. And Star Wars is set up, like Filoni can use this season to set up Star Wars for like the rest of our lifetimes if he wants to, like the next 30, 40 years. We can have because you look at Star Wars now, we've used the same bad guys for 50 years. So
that's true.
If you throw this out and it sticks, we've got a whole new sandbox to play in, and the right guys there to handle it. So I'm excited about that.
So it'll be interesting to see one way or the other, but I do think whatever it is, I think they're pushing it towards something down the line that's going to be pretty big.
Yeah, that's exciting. That gets me really excited to think about this. Well, that is all the time we have. That was a lot of fun. I think the possibilities are endless going forward. So I'm super excited for episode 7, super excited for episode 8. Per the usual, we will watch episode 7 next week. We will discuss it all day Wednesday when me and you text back and forth. We'll record this and we'll have it ready for you to watch next Friday. So I hope you guys have a great week. Enjoy Ahsoka episode 7, and may the Force be with you.